Snarkmonger on Twitter has asked about my thoughts on education. The first thought I have about education is that it's complicated. And I could go in so many directions with this, the difference between education and school, the commercialization of formal education, so many directions. I'm going to start at least with some memories of being in the school system as a kid. I would say that I had about the best education. Doing a little Slavoj Zizek sniffle. I would say that I had about the best education I could hope for from California public schools in the 70s and 80s, given my quirks, needs, whatever you want to call those. A large part of this is because my parents really cared about my schooling and research programs, got me into the gifted program. So yes, I am one of those depressed former gifted kids that you read about on Twitter. I don't know that I'm formerly gifted, but I am definitely formerly a kid. So I feel like it was about the best standard education I could have gotten under the circumstances. That said, in retrospect, there's a lot that sucked. And it wasn't necessarily bad in comparison to any other schooling that was available. I think there are just a lot of flaws in standardized education, which is not to say that it didn't really work for some people, and which is not to say that it didn't work for me better than it did for a lot of people who fall through the cracks. But that said, still, the teachers, I think, meant well and did what they could in a system that has various faulty assumptions, one of which is just putting that many kids in a classroom. Teachers and curriculum somehow have to aim for some kind of average of those kids in the classroom. The teachers sort of have to aim at the average, even if that's not the same average as another classroom or the average of kids as a whole. So they try to do something that will work for, ideally it would work for all kids. In reality, it works much better for some than others. Complicating things, while this was not, none of this was even suspected until well into adulthood. I have since been diagnosed with ADHD and self-identified autistic, as many people my age are doing now that they have access to information they did not have 20, 30, 40 years ago. I just thinking back to elementary school, first few years, I had a lot of I could say behavioral problems. It would be more accurate perhaps to say emotional control, regulation problems. I don't recall anyone ever using the words meltdown back then, but in retrospect, that seems highly applicable. Sensory overload. I was easy to set off. I wouldn't say I was seriously bullied as a kid. I also might say that I was sensitive and dysregulated enough that you could get at me with techniques a bit subtle to be called bullying. But it's really hard to say because it's not like I can get transcripts of schoolyard conversations from 1980. There was I remember in third grade, I'm picturing, second grade, It's really hard to say at this point. This is Halpia. We are taking care of Halpia while his parents are out of town. Halpia would apparently like more attention than he's getting from me. Oh, Halpia. I can hold you like this. How's that? So, in one of my classrooms early on, there was a little sort of